When you're watching Thor Ragnarok, this movie was something so fun. It was really different. This was a Thor Ragnarok that they did a whole switch on it. And I really like it. I think they did a lot of interesting things that they wouldn't normally do. I feel like it's not perfect by any means, but I definitely think that out of all of the other Thor movies and all the other iterations of him that we've seen in the Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, Thor the Dark World, I feel like this one takes the most risks, and it also is it's the boldest Thor movie we've gotten. And in terms of like a Marvel trilogy, this one is the craziest out of the bunch. If you look at Iron Man, or if you look at Captain America, they kind of follow a straightforward path, or their story's kind of like, it makes sense, the direction they're headed towards. Of course, connected to the overall Avengers or the MCU plot. But Thor, it goes completely different. The difference between Thor the Dark World and then Thor Ragnarok is gigantic. It's a huge gap. And I think that there are so many moments in this movie where it's like they just destroy everything. They just take down what Thor we think we know, or we have like kind of grown to see. You know what I mean? Like they just do so much differently. They make Thor a lot more funny and jokey than he is like kind of Shakespearean and serious. They cut off his hair. They get him into like this gladiator fight battle, which I think was really cool. They destroy Asgard. Like, it's crazy. So I feel like they take away so much from Thor, and it's very important, I think, to his character, especially when we see where he goes next. But it's really interesting to see how they completely change him, how they completely reinvent Thor. They make it a rebrand or make it something completely different. I think it's really interesting to watch. And then I think that when you take a look at Thor, like the Thor movies, like just watching the Thor movies by themselves, you don't really see Thor learn a lot. Like well, that's not true. The first Thor movie, he learns to be humble, humility, learns to be amongst people of Earth, though it is kind of like not done well, but he learns it. The second movie, he loses his mom, he learns to trust his brother again. I don't know what that second movie was trying to prove to us. I think it's just kind of like, well, my point with like these three Thor movies is that like what they're doing with him, or whether like they're trying to like lead him down towards, doesn't really progress Thor as a character per se, as much as this movie does. This movie just completely changes him. It makes him takes him in a new direction, which I really like. But if you take a look at the Thor movies as it pertains to the whole MCU plot, it pushes the MCU narrative forward, but it doesn't push Thor forward. Does that make sense? So if you take a look at the first Thor movie, it's Thor is an alien from another planet that comes to Earth, which has never happened before. Crazy, right? So that's like a huge realization to S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's what makes them want to use the Tesseract as a weapon. And it's how they connect the space to Earth, right? Then the Avengers, Loki comes to Earth, right? He's from another world. And then Thor has to fight him. And so those are direct consequences of the first Thor movie, is the Avengers. Loki comes to Earth on behalf of Thanos with the Tesseract, and then he messes up New York, right? He attacks New York. Then the second Thor movie is the Reality Stone. The Reality Stone is attached to Jane. And then the Dark Elves want the Reality Stone so they can destroy the world and whatnot. You know what I mean? So what happens to Thor in that movie? He basically is just like, I've had enough doing things for Asgard or whatnot. And then he moves on, you know what I mean? And then Avengers Age of Ultron introduces us to the Mind Stone. And then Thor's awakening to like the other Infinity Stones, right? So every time we see Thor, it's to progress the MCU plot, which is the Infinity Saga, which is Thanos and the Infinity Stones. We see that's a direct relationship between Thor and the progressing MCU storyline. as opposed to, well, I mean, I guess everybody contributes to it, but I feel like Thor's solo movies are kind of pushing it a lot more than I guess the others movies. Well, I mean, it's not true, but it is kind of true. I don't know. What about Captain America the Winter Soldier progresses Thanos coming to Earth? Right? Like as much as the reality stone being an object that he wants to grab. Nothing, right? So comparatively to like Iron Man or to Captain America, Thor is the one that like stays connected to the space or the cosmos, thus connecting to Thanos, and then it pushes that forward. Outside of the Guardians of the Galaxy, of course. So this movie, I had so much fun. I remember the first time I watched this movie in theaters. It was so much fun. There was so much hype around it, especially because it was like the third MCU movie of the year. You know what I mean? They did Guardians of the Galaxy, then Spider-Man, and this one was Thor. It was the trilogy. You know what I mean? It was really exciting. And there were a lot of questions as to how it would relate to the upcoming Infinity War movie and all of these other things, like how are they going to connect all the pieces of the dots together. And so I thought it was really, really cool. I remember I first watched it. It was fun. It was so unique. It was colorful comparatively to the other Thor movies and the other MCU movies. I felt like this one had a lot of color to it. It was fun. I just had a big blast with it. It was so cool. And I thought they took a bunch of comedic, they amplified the comedy to 11. I thought that was really good. So the movie starts off with Thor versus Surtur. I thought that was cool. If you take a look at, like, I guess, Norse mythology, you can find that it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's kind of a shame about this movie, is that they don't go deep into the Norse mythology, or, like, they don't dive in deep into Asgard as much as I would like, as much as I've been asking for. We keep on going back to Earth and Earth and Earth over and over and over again. And in this movie, we go to Sakaar instead, you know what I mean? And we also go to Earth. So it's like, it's a huge deal. But I did like the idea that they weren't sticking directly to, like, the Norse mythological way. They did it their own way, and they outright just destroyed it and went in a new direction, which I thought was cool. So anyways, Thor defeats Surtur, and he basically has been on a journey to find all of the Infinity Stones, or to learn about them and whatnot, and he's kind of come up empty, and he ends up at Surtur's footsteps, and he's trying to prevent Ragnarok, which is like the destruction of Asgard. And he has seen a prophecy of, like, Surtur destroying it with that we kind of saw in Avengers Age of Ultron with Heimdall, and him seeing the Infinity Stones and whatnot. Like, it all comes together. So seeing Surtur, he was like, all I have to do is kill you, take your crown, and keep it away from the eternal flame. Easy enough. So he destroys Surtur in a cool action sequence. He returns home to Asgard, and we see that the place has changed a lot, and mostly in favor to Loki, who is the savior of Asgard after the events of Thor, the Dark World, against the Dark Elves. And we see Loki pretending to be Odin, and Thor comes back. I thought it was really funny that guy at the beginning who's, like, in charge of Heimdall's job, or who took Heimdall's job, and he's, like, showing all of his stuff. I thought that was really funny. Thor returns home, and then he meets Loki. He gets him to reveal that he's not Odin anymore, and now he's like, where's father? Where's dad? Where's Odin? And he takes him over to Earth, and then they find him. He was supposed to be in, like, in a retirement home under a spell of some kind, and that retirement home is destroyed now, and they don't know where their dad is. And then suddenly Loki gets, like, a circle surrounding his feet, and then he falls right through a portal of something. And Thor, like, funnily, he pokes at, like, a card going, like, Loki. I thought that was funny. He falls down, he finds the card, and then he goes to Bleecker Street, and boom, it's Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch, man, makes a cameo. Great work. I don't know if this cameo was made during Thor Ragnarok production or if it was made during Doctor Strange production, because I would imagine they do it during Doctor Strange, and then that leads into Thor Ragnarok. But it could have been like a juggle in between, something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. Because I'm just trying to think production-wise. Like, 2015, Avengers Age of Ultron came out. And then 2016, there's no Thor movie. Well, that's when they would make Thor Ragnarok. So I guess they would just have Benedict come in for a quick thing. I don't know. And then they would add that to the end of Doctor Strange that would come out in the fall. Something like that. You know, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I think that was a really cool cameo that they had. I liked how he offered him tea and then he offered him like a huge beer. I thought that was really cool. I liked all of their comedic bits and timing and stuff. I liked how he uses his hair to find his father, Odin. I like the bit where Loki falls through the sky or through the portal, and he goes like, "I have been falling for 30 minutes." I thought that was funny. I thought that a fight between Loki and Doctor Strange would have been fun, but you know, for narrative purposes, he had to just go away. And then Odin's death. Now, this is something that I had trouble with as I was rewatching it. I understand the weight of it. I understand the sadness of it. I just kind of wish that it didn't happen in like a, let's just say I wish it didn't die in a peaceful float away in Norway kind of a vibe. I wanted Hela to come back, you know, at near the end of his life where he can no longer hold that protection spell over her after years of Loki manipulating his mind. He can no longer force his magic or his spell or what have you to imprison Hela, and she would return, kill Odin, and then fight Thor and Loki. I thought that would be a lot more powerful or a lot more in weight. I feel like it would give them a lot more purpose to, I don't know, to fight her. You know what I mean? But of course she's evil. You know what I mean? That you don't need much more reason than that. But I kind of wanted her to be the one to slay him or to kill him after years of imprisonment. I feel like she earned that. And it also would have been a nice, like, this is their sister. They killed their father. He knows a lot of things. And I just feel like, you know, throughout the Thor movies, they've wasted Anthony Hopkins. There's so many instances that Thor and Loki could have learned from Odin. They could have scrambled together and worked together. I feel like there were so many opportunities, so many moments, good moments that were missed. I feel like the only powerful moment we really got between Thor, Odin, Loki was when Odin first banished Thor. I felt like that was a really strong moment. I feel like this is the second strongest moment upon his death, where he's able to convey to his sons that he has another child, his real firstborn. Yeah, there's so many things I wish we learned about. There's so many things I wish we could have connected with, or, you know, I feel like there's so much more knowledge or so much more story there that Thor and Loki needed that we didn't really get. And it's disappointing that we'll never get that, as far as I know. But that was something that bugged me. I was kind of like, I wanted, you know, if they're going to kill him, let's really kill him. Let's send him off like a gruesome death. You know what I mean? Especially to tie into how awful he used to be. You know what I mean? I don't think that he in any way, shape, or form is going to, after learning about how he and Hela like destroyed civilizations and destroyed worlds, it's like he doesn't deserve a peaceful death. You know, even though he did turn out good in the end, I still feel like there's there's a good reason why he should probably get a harsher fight. But anyways, Odin dies, Hela comes back to Earth, Loki and Thor fight her, and then Loki gets scared. He tells Heimdall to bring them back, or the guy that took Heimdall's place. I'm just going to call him Executioner now, which is very interesting. He's the guy who plays Billy Butcher in The Boys, another superhero thing. So I thought that was really funny. And I really like how he has those two guns from Texas. He's like, Texas. And he goes like, I call them Des and Troy. And together they destroy. I thought that was so funny. It was a great bit. Anyways, Thor throws Mjolnir at Hela. She grabs it, breaks it to pieces, and then it's disappointing. It's sad. They fly back to Asgard. Hela like kicks them out of the Bifrost tunnel, or whatever you want to call it, the bridge, the portal or whatnot, like the little beam of light. She kicks them both out, and they both land on Sakaar magically somehow out there in the universe. And we see her return to Asgard, and everybody's like, whoa, who are you? Da, 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 da. And I feel like there's so much about what Hela does on Asgard that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, these are her people. Like, these are the people that she, like, wants to rule. And obviously they're opposing against her, and they want to kill her. But at the same time, it's like, she kills so many people, and it's like, what? It was kind of like overkill at that point. I was like, those are a lot of soldiers that she like needs or like wants to have. But, you know, I guess opposition, they were trying to fight back against her. I feel like Cate Blanchett does a great job of being Hela. She just does a really good job with the role. I really like her role as Hela. I really think that she does I think there's so much more to Hela if they had let Asgard stay Asgard. You know what I mean? But obviously that can't happen. So I just think that there was a lot more there that we didn't get, but you know, she was extremely powerful. She was a strong antagonist. I just feel like there was so much she could have been, or so much more that she could have turned into if she had stayed alive. But obviously that's not in the cards, but I liked it. Anyways, Thor ends up on Sakaar, and I kind of like the idea that they present there, which is like Loki was kicked out of the Bifrost portal first, and he landed on Sakaar. And Sakaar has like different time rules, where it's like him being there for like, what he got kicked out there for like 2 seconds, it's actually been like 2 weeks in their time. You know what I mean? I kind of like that idea. Anyways, Thor makes it to Sakaar. He meets with the Grand Master, played by Jeff Goldblum. I thought he was really great. Very funny. Good moments. I really like the part where he like melts his cousin. I was like, I don't know why I find it so amusing that he melts him, and he's kind of like, I'm stepping in it. I thought that was funny. I like how he calls him Lord of Thunder and Sparkles. That was a funny bit. I think that his role as the Grand Master, as a part of Sakaar, is really cool. And I like the introduction of the Tournament of Champions, or the Tournament of whatever. I thought that was really cool. And then, I also really like the introduction of the Valkyrie. I forget the actress's name. She was also in Creed. I forget her name. She's really great. Yeah, I thought she did a great job as the Valkyrie. What's her name? Tessa Thompson. Fantastic. She was great in this role. I thought she was so fun as a alcoholic. I thought she did a great job being strong, but with like a sad backstory. I think that, and it was connected to Hela. I feel like it all kind of meshed together well, and it worked together very well. So, anyways, Thor is been sold to the Grand Master by the Valkyrie, and she essentially submits him as a contender against the Grand Master's champion, who is like the head of the combat tournament or whatever, the Tournament of Champions. And Thor has to defeat this champion in order to win his freedom, and yada, yada, yada. So, anyways, Thor meets a talking rock called Korg, who's actually played by the I can't. It's Taika Waititi. There we go. I forgot his name there for a second. By the Taika Waititi, who's the director of the movie. I think he does a really funny job. He's like a big rock, but he has like a very soft and timid voice. I thought that was funny. There's also a bit where Thor is like waiting to fight or waiting to get ready to fight or whatever, and Loki comes and talks to him. I feel like where this movie is it's at its strongest is when Thor and Loki talk to each other, or like conversations are had, you know what I mean? More so than the actual fights themselves. There's just so much more that I want them to talk about. I want Thor and Loki to have like a screaming match and a talk against each other. I wanted more backstory about Valkyrie and Loki and Thor. I just kind of wanted all of that. I like it when they're talking to each other about Asgard and about the world that they want to protect. So anyways, Thor is getting ready to fight the champion. And I really like the gladiator approach that they took to it. I thought that was really cool. Stan Lee cameo. He cuts his hair off for the gladiator fight for the Tournament of Champions, which I thought was hilarious. That was a great bit. Hold still. I'm very, I'm not perfect with this. And then he slices off his hair. It was a little sad, but at the same time, it was like, I like the new look. I like the short hair. I think it was like a new direction, something fun to do. I thought it was just a great idea to like cut off his hair and whatnot. So he's going out there. I like the helmet being a nod to his comic book helmet that he never wears. He wore it in like one scene in Thor, and that was it. And so I thought it was cool that they brought it back. And then the Grand Master brings out his champion. And who is it but the Hulk? I thought that was so crazy that he was there on that world. I thought it was really fun that they put Hulk and Thor together. I thought that was really fun. And I like the bit where like Thor is like, yes! And, he's excited when everybody else would be scared. He's like, I know him. He's a friend from work. I thought that was a funny bit. I like how Loki was scared. He was like, I got to get off of this planet. I thought that was hilarious. And I like how Thor is trying to talk to Hulk. He's trying to talk to him like he's Banner. And then Hulk has like his own personality. He's like, I'm not Banner, I'm Hulk. So I have to fight. Everybody loves me here. Let's fight. And so they start fighting, and Thor is now like, I can't believe you're embarrassing me like this. You know what I mean? So they start fighting, and that whole sequence between Hulk and Thor, it's fantastic. It's the stuff of, comic book. It's just a comic book huge excitement moment. You know what I mean? It's such a huge part of the movie. It was the selling point of this movie was Hulk versus Thor in this gladiator fight. And they did such a great job with it. I think they did so much. They had so much fun with this matchup. We only saw bits and pieces of it on the first Avengers movie, and this time we get to see it more in a combat and a gladiator with weapons. We get to see them go all out without worrying about the ship or other factors. You know what I mean? So I thought it was really fun. I really liked how Thor was getting his hits in, and then Hulk was kicking his ass. Like, it was a good back and forth, and it really showcased how strong both of them are. You know what I mean? How strong the two of them are how destructive they get, you know what I mean? Fighting against each other. Thor actually being a match for Hulk, and Hulk having a tough time defeating Thor. Like, it was really, really fun. I like how the Grand Master was like confused that Thor was like actually hurting his champion. I thought that was funny. I thought that Hulk finally pummeling Thor was crazy. That was destructive. That was like, I would have been in pain. I mean, I would have died, but you know what I mean? And then Thor awakens his like lightning, his true power, and then he like uppercuts him. He's like shocking him, like going full power. And then the Grand Master like hits his little electricity thing, which is like, I was like, what the heck is this? Like, I thought that once he unlocked that power, like all he has to do is like flex it off, like shock it off. Like, that thing's electronic. And he's like, lightning is coursing through his veins. He should be able to shock it off. Like, it shouldn't be able to contain him. But for narrative purposes, he had to lose because he needs to stay on Sakaar and Hulk needs to win and yada, yada, yada. So I thought it was just so much fun. And then Thor loses, and then we cut to the next day, which is like Thor and the Hulk kind of like hanging out and talking together. And I like the explanation of like Hulk being Hulk for 2 years. And I also like the explanation that how did Hulk get there? I like it, but I don't like it. I like it in the sense that they say that he landed on the Quinjet and he just so happened to land on Sakaar. But I don't like it in the sense that they just Quinjet, boom, lands. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But we're just going to put it together like this. Let's say, just for the sake of discussion, the Quinjet came across a portal of some kind. Maybe a portal of the Bifrost or Asgard or something. Something happened where he got sucked into a vortex, and then that brought him into Sakaar by chance, just by luck, by random chance. Not anything more or anything less. Just random chance that he got sucked into a portal out of nowhere on Earth, and it brought him to Sakaar. You know, I'm not going to pretend I know everything, but I just feel like that's the only thing that we're going to get. And, you know, I don't like it, but I like it. It works for me. I accept it. I accept that, like, he's just there. You know, that's the only thing. And so Thor is like, yes, the Quinjet, where is it? We can use that to get out of here and escape and whatnot. And so Hulk and Thor kind of have like a back and forth. Thor sees Hulk naked, which is funny. And they kind of just like argue, have a back and forth and whatnot. And so Thor just needs to escape so he can go back to Asgard and save everybody from Hela. That's his main priority. And he kind of gets to see through Heimdall's eyes what's going on there, and he needs to escape Sakaar. So he gets Thor to help him out. They become friends. You know what I mean? I like the bit where Thor goes like, no, I don't even like Banner. He's all, you know, science and weird and stuff. I prefer you. I thought that was hilarious. That was a great bit. And so we basically just see Thor and the Hulk make nice. They become buddy-buddy. And Thor needs Hulk's help for Valkyrie to come see them, and he can talk to her about saving Asgard. And Valkyrie's like, okay, I'll talk to you as long as I can drink this bottle. And then she like gulps it in like 3 gulps. And then he's like, wow. You know what I mean? She destroys the vase. And essentially he does all of this talking to her to take away her little device that he has attached to his neck. And he takes it from her, he removes it, and then he goes straight for the Quinjet. And Hulk is like, no, friend. Thor makes it to the Quinjet, and he's trying to like log in, and he's like, strongest Avenger, strongest Avenger. Great, great bit. Hulk comes in, he starts tearing the place apart, and Thor accidentally plays the footage of Black Widow at the end of Age of Ultron, which is her being like, hey, we can't track you in stealth mode, so if you can help me out, that'd be great. And we just get to see Scarlett Johansson talking, and then Hulk is like slowly changing back into Banner. And I really liked this transformation scene. I really liked how Hulk was scared to be back as Banner, or he doesn't want to leave. And he's like punching himself. He's like trying not to revert back. And then we see Banner come back. And everything changes, you know? And then we see Thor trying to calm him down, going like, the sun's real low. The sun's getting low. I thought that was funny. And he gives him Tony Stark's clothes. And they move on. You know what I mean? So Thor breaks it to Banner that he's been Hulk for 2 years. They're on a whole different alien planet, and he needs his help to go save Asgard and, you know, defeat his sister and his sister Hela and everything. And it's just a really funny banter between the two of them, where it's like, you know, Thor is trying to convince Bruce to come help. But then Bruce is like, you don't care about me. You're not my friend. You just want to use the Hulk to fight. And he was just like, no, I don't even like Hulk. He's all smash, smash, smash. No, I prefer you. I thought that was funny. And just another funny callback between that talk. But then there's like this whole huge Hulk festival in order to bring the champion of Sakaar back to the Grand Master, because he doesn't know that Hulk is Banner. Banner is like in disguise and whatnot. I just thought it was really brilliant how they bring that all together. So then Thor is recruiting Valkyrie, and then he's recruiting Loki, and they all kind of come together to form the Revengers. And I like the bit where Bruce Banner kind of knows Valkyrie and is like, I feel like I know you. And she's like, I feel like I know you too. It's funny. And I just feel like they have a great banter. And so eventually they have to steal one of the Grandmaster's ships so that way they can go through the Devil's Anus, so that way they can go to Asgard. That's the whole thing, okay? And the Devil's Anus is basically like a giant cosmic black hole portal or whatnot. So now it's Thor, Valkyrie, Loki, and Bruce going to Asgard. And they're the Revengers. So as they're going to get one of the Grandmaster's ships, they have a heart-to-heart, Loki and Thor. There's a great moment in the story that I wish we got more of. This is why I like the dialogue between these two. I feel like the chemistry between them is so powerful. So we see Loki kind of telling Thor that, like, you know what, maybe I'm not going to go back to Asgard. Maybe I'm just gonna stay here. You know what I mean? I don't feel like Asgard's really for me. I feel like I'm going to hang out here. And Thor's kind of like, I'm sure you'll do great. And Loki's like, do you think so little of me, brother? And Thor's like, I thought the world of you. I thought that you and I would fight together forever, side by side. But you chose to be something else, and we're different people, you know? Our paths have been diverged a long time ago. And I really like that moment. And then they have a comedic moment with Get Help. I thought that was a funny bit. And then Loki tries to betray Thor. Thor realizes Loki was going to betray him. He shocks him. And it just becomes a realization that, like, Loki has continued to be Loki and Thor has grown. He has become different. He is a new kind of person who is, like, not as trusting as he used to be of Loki. He trusted Loki when he, in the first Thor movie, and then he trusted it in Thor the Dark World. And then to trust him again in Thor Ragnarok would be like him falling for it again. But he's not falling for it again, and he shocks him. And he basically leaves him there, which is crazy, but he leaves him shocking there. He could have died. But anyways, he leaves him there. He takes the Grandmaster's ship. Him, Valkyrie, and Bruce escape. And, yeah, there was a... Then the Grandmaster's, like, people come after them on the ships, and Valkyrie goes to destroy them. Thor helps her out. They destroy the ships, and, like, a great fight sequence. And there's a really funny moment where Thor and the Valkyrie and Bruce are on the ship, and they're like, "Where are the guns? Does he have any guns on this?" And she's like, "No, it's the Grandmaster's leisure vehicle. He mostly uses it for orgies and stuff." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, they threw that in there." I thought that was comedically, I thought that was wild for a MCU movie, like a PG-13 kids, like, comic book character adventure movie. They threw orgies in there. I thought that was funny. That was just a really funny moment. And then eventually Valkyrie and Thor defeat the people following them, and, you know, they move on. So, back on Asgard, we see that Hela has awakened her army of the dead. She has her big dog Fenris, or Fenrir, or whatever you want to call it. Just that big wolf thing. And we see that Loki gets saved by the Revolution, led by Korg and that other Meek. I think it's called Meek. Very funny. So anyways, just another thing. I feel like they wasted Heimdall. Well, they really wasted Idris Elba. Like, talk about a huge waste of talent. Like, they wasted Anthony Hopkins and Idris Elba. It's so disappointing to see how little screen time Heimdall gets and how much, you know, how little he gets to do in these movies. It's really disappointing. But I feel like his character is important, but they just don't give him enough, you know? It's sad. So anyways, Heimdall is protecting the Asgardians, and Thor has arrived back on Asgard, and it's up to him to distract Hela to give everybody enough time to go run through the Bifrost and escape to Earth or to any of the other 9 realms. And if they do that, they'll be outside of her grasp. She won't be able to rule over them or to control them or to hurt them. So Thor is now sitting in the throne room, getting ready to fight Hela. And there's a great moment where they recall Odin's words about how a great king never seeks out war, but must always be ready to face it or to fight it. And I really like the action between Hela. I think that it's really cool that she can just summon weapons or like blades and whatnot. I thought Thor was definitely hanging in there. I thought that was crazy. He was holding his own. But, you know, obviously Hela's a lot stronger than him, being the firstborn and all. So then we get a flashback to Thor and Odin, and we eventually see that Odin guides Thor to his true power of that kind of lightning and that kind of god of thunder that he's supposed to be. And we see him strike her with a bolt of lightning. We see him fly through the sky and land on the Rainbow Bridge and fighting the army of the dead alongside Valkyrie and everybody else. And then cut to Banner and Valkyrie trying to like help everybody cross the Rainbow Bridge. We see that big wolf try to attack everybody, and Heimdall's getting ready to fight it. But then Bruce is like, "You wanted to know who I am? Watch this." He jumps out of the plane and he hits the Rainbow Bridge as Bruce Banner. He doesn't even transform. Oh man, it's so funny. That part cracks me up. That was so funny. He's like, "You want to know who I am? Just watch." He jumps out of the bridge. She's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He jumps out of the bridge and he jumps off of the ship onto the Rainbow Bridge. Doesn't even transform. He just hits himself like for no reason. And everybody like looks at him. Like Heimdall looks at him. The wolf looks at him. Like everybody takes a pause. And then like in the 5 seconds that like the wolf is getting ready to like walk past him, he transforms into the Hulk and they start fighting and everybody starts crossing the bridge. So anyways, Thor is now newly awakened. He's missing an eye, his right eye. And we basically see that it's going to be impossible to kill Hela without anything strong enough to defeat her. So now it's Loki's arrival. He shows up to save everybody on Asgard, along with Korg and the rest of the Revolution. I thought that was also a great moment. We get to see a little bit of redemption for Loki, or we get to see him be a savior yet again of the Asgardian people. And he saves them. They're all getting onto the ship, and they're still trying to fight Hela. And then Thor comes to the realization that this isn't about stopping Ragnarok. We have to cause Ragnarok because Surtur's the only one strong enough to defeat Hela. He'll destroy Asgard, and thus Hela will be dead because Asgard is not a place, but a people. And that's what Odin tells Thor. It's like, just like he is not the god of hammers, Asgard isn't just that place, that planet, that city. It's so much more than that. It's the people. And it bothers me a little bit because we don't get to spend any time with, the people. We don't get to see him spend time with everybody. But on the other hand, it's like we spend time with Thor. We know Thor. We like Thor. So if it's important to him, they're important to me. So it's kind of like, I wish we got to spend time with the Asgardians. I wish we got to get more Asgardian lore. I wish we got to get more time on Asgard and learn more things about it. Sadly, that's over. So, anyways, we see Loki head up to the throne, to the Odin's chambers or whatever, the throne room or whatever you want to call it, where he keeps all of his stuff. And he gets Surtur's crown and he's about to throw it into the eternal flame when Loki notices the Tesseract just sitting there. Just gives it a look. Nothing too crazy. Anyways, he throws Surtur's crown into the eternal flame and he goes like, "With this, you are reborn. You are going to be destructive." And then Loki gets the hell out of there. And with that, Hela's basically kind of like, "You guys can't beat me." And Thor's like, "I know, but he can." And then Surtur comes out, destroys Asgard and whatnot. And that's all she wrote. It's over. Asgard gets destroyed. Hela tries to fight him, but fails. He destroys Asgard, including Hela. And it's all over. The Asgardian people make it onto the ship and they leave. But before they get away, the army of the dead is about to climb in and kill more people. And who saves them? The Executioner with Des and Troy. And together they destroy. And he's like destroying everybody and killing everything. And Hela stabs him and kills him. That being the end of him. Yeah, I just felt like it was a great moment, a funny moment. So overall, that's the end of the story. Thor is the new king of Asgard in that ship, and they fly to Earth to build a new home on Earth, a new Asgard, you know? And so the end of the movie comes, and we see that Thor and Loki are kind of like talking about their new lives or what's going to happen next for the Asgardians. Loki's kind of like, do you think it's such a good idea to bring me back on Earth? You know? And Thor's like, yeah, I don't know. But I have a good feeling that everything's going to work out. And then they look above them or in front of them, and they see a gigantic ship that looks eerily familiar to the one that Ronan used in Guardians of the Galaxy, that more than likely belongs to a certain villain that we've been building up towards. And yeah, it's looking really bad for the Asgardians. It's an eerie moment. It's very, very scary. But anyways, that's the end of that. And then we see that the end credits scene, we see Jeff Goldblum as the Grand Master. He sees like what the revolution has done to Sakaar and how the Grand Master he's not really the Grand Master anymore. And all of the people hate him and whatnot. So it's just a funny throwaway and post-credit scene. So in conclusion, this movie was so much fun. It was a great blockbuster movie. I feel like there were huge consequences to it. We lose Odin, we lose Asgard, everything gets destroyed, and the Asgardians are moving to Earth. I feel like that's a huge thing. But that end credit scene, that post-credit scene it just leaves you on a cliffhanger of, oh snap, something else is about to happen. And it's not going to be pretty. So that's to come in Infinity War. But as for this movie itself, it was so much fun. I can't describe another word for this movie. It's fun. It's crazy. It's comedy. It's a perfect blend of it. Do I wish the story could have been more focused on Odin, Thor, Loki, Hela? Like, I feel like there's so much more meat on those bones of like Odin's betrayal and then Loki's betrayal and how Thor can rise above it to become this greater person, you know, a great Asgardian, you know what I mean? As opposed to the ones that came before him and the ones that stay stuck to him, you know? So it's interesting to see, and I don't know, I think that rebranding him or doing something completely different with him was the right call. I think that they made the right choice in choosing to go the different direction and have as much fun with it and change him completely. I just really liked it. If it had stayed like the same Thor that we had always known, it wouldn't be as good, you know? He wouldn't be as strong of a character and what we see coming up in these next movies he's in. So it's all really interesting. So I'm happy that this movie happened. I think they do a great job with it. It's a lot of fun. Introduce some good characters like Tessa Thompson, the Grand Master, Hela, Korg. It all flows and it blends well together. I really like it. So at the end of the day, Thor Ragnarok, good movie. I feel like it did a great job doing some new stuff. Having Hulk in the mix was really fun and crazy. It just all flowed well for me. And this is definitely a rewatchable movie. I always get a kick out of watching it, and I feel like it's so different to anything else out there and currently doing. So I really like it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.